This is how to build the perfect champion pool to climb, because having a well-rounded pool allows you to improve fast. Listen closely guys, because my most successful students are the ones with a consistent champion pool, while the ones that stay behind and stay stuck are the ones that pool is just in the shitter. So, what do we need to know to build a successful champion pool? A solid champion pool is built upon the foundation of 5 pillars. We're going to be starting off with the first pillar, which is size. The reason size is so important is because whenever you play a game, you're either learning champion mastery or you're learning the game fundamentals. So the larger your champion pool is, the harder it is to actually learn the game fundamentals. That's why size is so incredibly important. Too big of a pool and we're not going to be able to learn the game fundamentals. Too small of a pool, basically OTPing, and we're going to only be learning the game throughout one specific champion, which is not ideal as well. So if you're Platinum and below, I recommend having a max of 2 champions. If you're Emerald and Diamond, I recommend having a max of 3 champions. If you're Master Plus, I recommend having a max of 4 champions. So some champs are just harder than others. So if you play a lot of hard champs, your champion pool size should be smaller. They are interconnected. While if you play easier champs, it's okay to have your size a little bit higher because of the fact that fundamentally it's easier for you to focus on game specifics if you play an easier champion. Well, if you play Katarina or Kiana, a lot of your mental stack is actually occupied by the complexity of the champion itself, which is going to make it harder for you to focus on the game fundamentals. So we made a tier list in the MLA when it comes to improvement at each rank. So what do we recommend that you play whenever you are playing at a certain rank? That's these champions. Of course, if you are a platinum player, right, and you want to play a champion like Katarina because you're an OTP, that's possible, but do understand that then the size of your pool needs to be slightly lower. So that means that if you want to be playing Katarina and Platinum or Gold, make sure that you OTP her. Don't add any other stuff besides it. The biggest problem I see is that people think they can play all the complex champs in the game and still get away with it. That's just not true. Every single time I see them fail over and over and over again. And I give them the hard truths, but the reality is, if they don't listen, right, it's really hard for them to make progress. You can't play Yasuo, Zoe, LeBlanc, Azir, Ryze, Katarina, and think that you can improve. It's impossible. Some champs are just stronger than others. That's why it's so much easier to climb on stronger champs. So what I recommend when building the perfect champion pool is that you find champs that are strong and are strong over a longer period of time. We call those evergreen champions. It's so easy to start your pool with the fundamental evergreen champion and build from there, because if you put in the reps and the work on these champs, you will consistently find results over time. When choosing champions, every champ has a different strength or weakness. Our job is to try to make these strengths and weaknesses complement each other so we have a well-rounded pool that can balance itself out in sticky situations and you don't really find yourself games that are absolutely unplayable. So at a very high level, right, to really simplify it, there's like a few key identities that you got to keep in mind. You have the classic control mage, you have the skirmish-oriented champions, and you have the assassin-like champs. Now, classic control mages, of course, are the Syndra, Orianna, Wei, Mel, etc. While skirmisher, you look at a Galio, an Ahri, an Aurora, a LeBlanc, a Talia, and assassins that you're going to be looking more at the Yone, at the Akali, the Zeds. All of these champs have different strengths and weaknesses, and if you combine a control mage with a skirmisher, suddenly you can actually deny the weaknesses from a control mage by picking that skirmisher champion in the game, but also the other way around. So make sure that whenever you choose a champion pool, that you don't choose 3 champs of the same identity. So if you have Syndra, Orianna, and Victor in your pool, you're gonna massively struggle versus high threat games. League of Legends is a game. I want you guys to understand that, because a lot of people sometimes forget. It's competitive, but it's a game. But you gotta have fun, guys. You gotta be genuinely curious about the champion that you're gonna be playing. You can't just pick Syndra because you think she is the best champion in the patch, but then you actually play her, you can't stand playing her, and you just start grinding games with her, hating yourself all over the place. No, fun is a part of the game. You got to understand that fun is really crucial to our curiosity and our actual mindset and willingness to improve. If we do not have that fire, that drive to improve, most likely we will not improve. So to start off, find a champion that you find fun and is evergreen over a long period of time, and then start building with the identity, size, and complexity skills. So let's build a few champion pools together. Let's start with if you're, for example, below platinum and you're, for example, gold. and you really like Victor. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick Victor as our primary champion. That's fantastic. And since we want to have a pool of max 2, or usually below platinum, we have a few options to complement Victor with. Now, we already have a classic control mage, so adding an extra control mage doesn't really make sense. Usually, these assassins are a little bit too hard to execute at this level of the game yet, so a good skirmisher can be a very nice option. Potential options can be the Ari, can be the Vex, can be a Lysandra, can be a Galio. Galio is a killer options. And it really just depends on which of these champs do you now like to play the most. Because all of these champs have the tools to make it work in below platinum, but it's then up to you on which one that you like to pair it up. And most commonly, also what I see with meta, I see either Victor Galio or Victor Ari. So now let's say we're Emerald or Diamond and we want to be creating a champion pool. We got to start off with the champ that we want to be building around. So since we're Emerald or Diamond, we can literally pick any champion and have decent success with it. So what really is going to be important for us to recognize, what champ do we enjoy the most that is also good in the meta? A really good example can be, for example, Syndra or Silas. These are very decent options that you can go with. The reality is, we now need to build the rest of our pool accordingly towards these identities and the complexity of this champion. So if we're going to be playing Syndra, it doesn't really make sense adding in an Azir. We're now adding in a very difficult pool. It'd be much better to put this Azir, for example, at the Silas side and just cap it at 2. These are 2 very hard champs, but if you stick to them for the longer period of time, you can actually make it work. In that case, we're not going to be adding a 3rd champ, because otherwise this pool would be way too complex. If you're going to be running something like this, or an Akshan right here, you're going to be setting yourself up for absolute failure because these champs are brutally hard. So, getting back towards the Syndra POV, right? What would be nice to complement the Syndra with? Well, a little bit of a skirmisher and a control mage do go hand in hand really well. So we can do the Vex, the Aurora, the Ari, in the likes of that stuff, the Galio, right? So now let's pick the Galio, because the Galio is just a very strong combination with Syndra. Personally, I ran Syndra Ari and Syndra Aurora. Those were the combinations that I mainly ran when I made my climb to Challenger. And Galio is just one that we're going to be taking for reference right here. Now, the complexity of this pool is, it's definitely not easy. Syndra is not a champ that we can underestimate. And Galio is definitely a little bit easier. So there's potentially room for a little bit of a 3rd champion. But you got to keep in mind that that 3rd champion is not going to be too hard or too complex. You mainly want to be building up with your most complex champions, the one that you're going to be building your pool around, and then move down towards less complex champs. So potentially we want to actually put Galio on 3, and then we can put a champ like Talia on number 2. This is a pretty well-rounded pool. Now we see that we don't really have an assassin like Akali in there, because this would already complicate the pool, because of now we're running Syndra plus Akali as your champ pool, which is very complicated, because both of these champs are honestly not that easy in the micro department. Now, if you're going to be Master Plus, your options are going to be very wide and open, but I still would recommend not spreading yourself too thin. Of course, we can have a max of 4 champs, but keep in mind that's a max. Personally, I made the climb to Challenger with 2 champions, Syndra Aurora, Syndra Ari. I initially tried to do that with 3 champs, with Akali in there, but I recognized, hey, with the amount of time and investment that I have, I cannot reach Challenger level on all 3 of these champs, so I have to do it only on 2. So I decided to drop Akali, even though I'm Master Plus. So definitely keep in mind that you're going to need to play these champs at a very high level to absolutely get results with it. So let's do a little bit of a unique one. Let's say you're Master Plus and you're a Kiana player, right? You're a Kiana player, you want to build a pool around Kiana. Well, this is a super complex champ and a little bit of an OTP-oriented champ. So what I would recommend is, if you're a Kiana player, don't add more than 1 champion to your pool because of how much investment in the micro of this champion actually needs. So potentially a good fit can be the Galio. Another good fit can potentially be a Silas, or if you want to like to play a little bit more as a control mage, complement each other a little bit better, you can potentially do the Syndra, even though it's going to be quite hard because of the different identities being so different that we definitely need to understand how both of these champs play. Conversely, you can also do an Akali, right? The Kiana Akali, fully all in on an assassin identity, and then all in upon your mechanics, allowing you to carry over the finish. Now, this is not going to be the most classic pool that you can build. A classic pool is mainly going to be built around an evergreen control mage. So personally, I was a really big Syndra fan. I was the guy I'm the guy that builds around Syndra, but not everyone is a Syndra enjoyer. So instead of Syndra, we're going to be trying out Orianna. So now we have got Orianna. What we can add to Orianna is we can add skirmish-oriented champs. So once again, the Vex, the Aurora, the Ari, the Galio, potentially even the Silas, the Talia. These are perfect complementary champs towards this style of champion. So we now got ourselves the Orianna plus the Talia. And now we're going to for the first time in the entire video, going to talk about having an AD champ in your pool. I don't think it's necessary having an AD champ in the pool. I've made the climb without an AD champ, but a lot of people feel like they need to have an AD champ. So what you can potentially do is you can potentially add a champ like Yone. And this is a very solid pool for if you're able to consistently play these champs for a longer period of time. They're not easy, but if you can build with this pool over a longer period of time in Master Plus, you will eventually see results. And all of these champs require a lot of effort and attention, so we need to get the games in as well. Potentially what you can do, if you're really, really feeling juicy, you can add a specific counter pick that isn't too hard to play. So if you want to pick Galio in niche scenarios versus a heavy AD composition, you can potentially do that. But keep in mind that your mastery on this champ is only going to be as good as your situation in the draft. So this is going to be a bit of a temp elo win. It doesn't necessarily make you a better player, so be quite hesitant about it. But that's the mindset when it comes to building this pool. Now, if you're, for example, a Yone player, or a Yone enjoyer, a melee enjoyer, what you can do is you can play with Yone as your core. You can then combine, for example, that with an Ari or a different skirmisher, and then finish it off with potentially a little bit of an extra counter pick. So maybe the Galio, maybe the likes of the Lissandra, or even one of the most unused ones that people sometimes overlook. You can potentially do a Pantheon for like some melee matchups that you might struggle with. Pantheon does a pretty good job at that. So this is the mindset when it comes to building a pool, guys. So if you guys want my help creating a champion pool or taking your gameplay to the next level through coaching, check out the link in the description. See you guys there.